And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Happy Thursday. Ben Anderson, Sam Farnsworth sitting in for Jake for this first hour. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, guys, what's happening?
We're doing well.
I've got that down. Anyway, sorry, that's the drop they recorded of me years ago.
Oh, okay.
It's used all the time by JJ and Alex. And
Can't get away from it.
Anyway, yeah, I'm good. I'm glad to be here this morning. It's been a good week.
You didn't start your career in Colorado, or is that where you started your career?
That's where I started my on-air career, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there in two different markets for a while.
How much different was this time of year versus it is here? What do we do here?
Like we just knew that come the third week of July until the end of January that I would be working, 50, 60-hour weeks. Yeah. And it's like training camp, once training camp began for the Denver Broncos, it was all go all the time. You got up early in the morning, you got to camp, you worked all day for TV, And look, I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, sure.
I enjoyed the work. It was very enjoyable for me. And but yeah, it just hit the gas pedal to the metal. Like we would always joke, if the Colorado Rockies can just stay relevant.
Yeah.
Till the All-Star break.
2.5 months.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. You can tank after that. We got Broncos now. So.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, what's happening?
There it is.
Well, not this year with the Rockies, unfortunately.
No, my goodness.
Just came off the worst three-game series of all time.
Yeah.
But, I'm curious what it's like to cover an NFL team and what that is like. And, I was watching Hard Knocks last night because I missed it on the opening day, but I watched it last night. And again, what's amazing is just how open so much of the practice is, certainly to fans.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way to media?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, training camp. So what I loved about training camp is just that. It's because it's open to the fans and open to the public. They have multiple practices a day and a week, and a few of those are closed. But because they are open to the public, they have to stay open for the media the whole time, too. I learned more about the team.
Because, how are you going to weed people out?
Right.
What in a mustache?
And they only let us, from a video standpoint, they'd only give us like the first 20 minutes. So you still don't get a ton of great footage. You get them stretching, doing a few different things. But you're still there. During the regular season, after the 10-minute viewing period, they kick you out of practice.
Right.
You can't watch anymore. So training camp, you get to watch the whole thing. This is when you really get to see position battles start to develop. You get to see young talent start to emerge and be like, wow, this guy's got something. This is when a guy like, I don't know if you remember Julius, or what's his name? Thomas, the tight end for the Broncos when they went to the Super Bowls back in, Anyway, this is a guy that came out of nowhere. He played basketball at Portland State, and in training camp, everyone's like, this guy's got hands. This guy can jump. This is a pretty good football player. Anyway, that's what I loved about it. It was wide open. You definitely got to get a good inside look at the position battles and who was going to make the final roster, the 53-man roster. So,
you still consider yourself an NFL guy first? Just as a fan, when you put your fan hat on, is that where you go? Or was that ever the
question.
case?
Well, growing up, it was always baseball.
Okay.
I loved baseball. And it's not quite there anymore for baseball. I still love it. My kids are into baseball now, so I'll sit down and watch it. NFL, it's hard because I've been in this industry long enough that it's hard for me to figure out what I'm a fan of anymore.
Right. Yeah, you're a fan of having things to talk about.
I'm a fan of teams still. The teams I grew up cheering for, I'm a fan of still. I'm a fan of, I love this new hockey team. Yes, I'll call myself a fan because that's what we all are. I don't care what anyone says. Every sports journalist out there, we're in this business because we were fans at one point.
Like
and
sports,
we love sports.
Yeah.
So, but being a fan of it, I like it all. I like that there's changes in the seasons, right? We get to switch it up. We cover football for a while, then basketball for a while, then so.
Do you get geared up for preseason NFL football? I do, and honestly, by the middle of the season, sometimes the NFL, and I'm still into it, but because I don't have a team, I don't have specific players, I don't play fantasy football, I can kind of pick it up and put it down as I need because it falls behind our local college football teams. Certainly the Jazz kick up.
Yeah.
BYU basketball this year is going to be fascinating. Utah basketball is going to be fascinating with Alex Jensen.
100%.
Inevitably, the NHL or the NFL is going to have to take a step back. The NHL will jump it where we are.
Right.
But I do enjoy this part of it. I mean, this just feels like hardcore football season for me. So even tonight, if the NFL game's on, I'm going to be tuning in. Look,
preseason games are, and I know the NFL is starting to weed them out, right? They want to add an 18th game and eventually weed out preseason games. I'll tell you this, and the NFL friends that are colleagues that I still have to this day that played in the NFL, they will still tell me to this day how important those preseason games were for them to making a roster spot. Preseason games are critical for those bubble guys.
Yep.
Right? If you are trying to land one of those last 3 or 4 roster spots, these games are so important. And for fans of teams that understand those battles and what's going on and who might, coming from Utah, you're a fan of all these BYU and Utah State guys that have gone to the NFL that are trying to make a roster spot. Maybe they weren't drafted. They were unsigned free agents. Their opportunities in these preseason games are critical. Britton Covey, he had decent preseason games and he was able to earn that spot on the roster. I mean, there's several players.
Caleb Lohner.
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, yeah.
Taysom Hill was great in the preseason with the Green Bay Packers. He caught enough eyes that the list goes on and on of why these preseason games are important. So that's why I like them. There's always someone fighting for a job, and if you have a connection or a knowledge of some of these people that are doing it, it makes these preseason games way more interesting.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the NFL season. Obviously excited for our college football teams as well. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, because I was just thinking this on the way in.
Yeah.
Is there who do you think is the most important person between all of our local college football teams this year? Like, who is the biggest hinge point on which everything will revolve around? And I think there is one obvious answer, and I'll just say I think that's Devin Dampier. If Devin Dampier, he's just got to be such a machine. Yep. He's got to handle so much production at Utah. But, I mean, it's the quarterback every year. The weird thing is it's probably not at BYU. Now, of course, if they have a great quarterback step up, that's going to fix everything. Right. But I can't even – they can't tell us who it is right now. So I can't identify that person right now. So I can't say it's a quarterback at BYU. I think it's easy to say it's Devin Dampier at Utah. But I'm wondering outside of Devin Dampier, who might be that most important person? So
when I was thinking – like when you mentioned kind of the hinge point, it makes me feel like almost like I don't know if make or break is too harsh here, but I thought of a coach at first, but it's tied to Devin Dampier. I'm thinking Jason Beck at the U because they bring him in. You have this dominant defense, the same tough, physical, stingy defense that we're so used to at the U. They were great last year. They just couldn't score points. If that team scores 4 touchdowns a game, they were 10-2 last year, right? Yeah. And now you bring in this offensive coordinator, this quarterback that everyone's excited about, that it feels like they're going to have that instant offense. They're going to win 9-10 games again because they're going to have that. So for me, it's like, does this Jason Beck offense translate over to the U? Not only that, but does he have the pieces he needs to succeed the way he did in New Mexico? And then, so that kind of goes back to Devin Dampier. So that was kind of the first guy that came to my mind at BYU. I think it's a little harder to identify. Like you said, when I think of one player on offense that I'm like, that could make a huge difference, and no matter who the quarterback is, I'm thinking of LJ Martin.
Yeah, I think it has to be LJ Martin.
Right? They've been talking about how much more physical, how much stronger he is. He's healthy. We saw what he was able to do last year, and they're just touting him. This is RB1. This is the guy. He's going to have an amazing year, and they're the ones saying it. So if you have a great running back, sure takes a lot of pressure off of whoever's taking the snaps at quarterback, and I feel like a run game can make a huge difference for whatever BYU wants to do.
The way you looked at Jason Beck, I also circled A-Rod.
Yeah.
And A-Rod has consistently delivered at BYU, and we can look back and say 2023 was maybe a bit of the exception where they didn't figure it out with Keaton Slovis, and even when Jake Retzloff stepped in late, he did not look particularly good. Mm-hmm. But he did wonders, obviously, with Zach Wilson. While Jaron Hall didn't turn into the NFL player that I think some had hoped after Zach Wilson, that's not really the measure of success. No. What do you do when you're at BYU? Yeah, Jaron Hall was fabulous.
Yeah, he was great at BYU. Yeah.
So, and then to replace him, and again, there was a down year with Slovis and Retzloff's first year. But then last year, again, it's just, I have a hard time burying what a major loss it's going to be to not have Jake Retzlaff next year. And I get it's a very talented defense. I know Jay Hill's fantastic. Great to have LJ Martin. Mm-hmm. But you're losing a very productive quarterback from last season who at the very least proved he was capable of winning games when they needed to win games and put BYU in situations over and over and over to win those games. When you lose him, someone's going to carry that load. And yes, a running back can do a lot of it, but A-Rod's going to have to work his magic. He's going to have to find a guy in relatively short order because nobody was expecting this to be the quarterback race for BYU barring a major injury. And then he's got to turn him into, if BYU wants to win a conference title, which is why all these guys came back, it might be why Jay Hill came back.
Yeah.
You've got to work your magic, and you've got to get a guy who's not just good, but a guy who's good enough to win you games.
Yeah, you have to. A-Rod's the guy that if things don't go well, that's the guy that fans will clamor about. Like his offense, the play
finger
calling.
will be pointed at him.
Right, sure. And, he said it last year, he said it last week, that this quarterback competition needs time. It'll solve itself out on the field of competition in camp, and by the time they're ready to name a starter, everyone on the field will know who it is because they will have seen it happen, right? He's said that multiple times. Yesterday I was down there for their media availability for a little bit, and I asked a few of the players on offense that question. I'm like, hey, A-Rod has mentioned this before. Is that true for you as a wide receiver? Is that true for you as an offensive lineman? I'm talking to Carson Ryan, Andrew Gentry, Parker Kingston. I'll ask these guys, is that true? Can you see, is it clear to you who the winner is? And they didn't have the clearest answers.
Yeah.
A couple of them were like, yeah, I think so. I think it'll be obvious. A couple of the other guys like, it doesn't really matter who's taking, they're giving the PC answer.
Yeah.
But you're right. From a talent standpoint, I think the quarterbacks that are in play for this job at BYU are on par with Jake Retzlaff. I really do think so. I don't think Jake was a great quarterback. I think he was good. But what I think he was really good at was commanding and leading his teammates.
Yeah.
And like you said, he did win them games. He had moments. That Oklahoma State game I still think of last year, that was a career-defining fourth quarter final drive to win a big-time game. Those are things that don't just happen to a guy who gets put in, his experience in the season had built him up to that point. And so those are the things that they're going to miss for sure. From a talent standpoint, I think they have just as good of talent, but is the leadership, is the command, is the respect, is the trust there?
I think that's fair. I think because for the most part, unless you get a Zach Wilson or you have an Alex Smith, honestly, the talent level is pretty level in college football across the board in a lot of spots. And you've got your standouts. You've got your 4 or 5 guys that stand out that probably dictate how your season's going to go. But it is those intangible qualities, which that's what's hard to learn in preseason.
Totally.
Because it's like you can't simulate fourth quarter, 2-minute drive at Rice-Eccles Stadium from the, 1 or 2 yard line, and you've got to march 100 yards and score, and you've got to do it quickly, and you've got limited timeouts, and you've got to handle the noise. How does McKay Hillstead show that on Tuesday afternoon on the practice field?
Yep.
How do we learn that from Bachmeier? And I think that's where the difficulty has to come as a coach of making the right decisions, because you may not know if you don't have the guy until that moment.
Yep.
And then you've got to make the switch, and then that's really difficult to do, because then you've got another full-blown battle on your hands, and everything you did for all of fall camp isn't undone, but you probably feel like you start back at square one a little bit.
And the patience has to be there, right? Not only from the coaches, but the fan base. And that's the thing. It's just never going to be there. They expect things. They expect you to win. And if you're not winning, everyone gets angry. But I think no matter who emerges as this quarterback, I mean, you could say a little more for someone like Hillstead or Bourget who've been in that situation. They've been a starter before at the D1 level. But if things aren't going great right away, you're just, look, this is their first experience starting for BYU in this offense. I think there's going to be, no matter who it is, you just got to brace yourself for the hiccups, because I feel like they're inevitable.
I don't envy them.
No.
I don't envy that, because
nope.
There's obviously not a clear-cut number one at BYU. And if there was, they would have named them already, and I don't think it would have been a difficult decision, truthfully. But we didn't know who the backup was going to be before Retzlaff left, so we don't know who the starter is going to be now that he is gone. And with that being the situation, how long of a leash do you give them? everyone's going to look good against Portland State.
Right.
In fact, I can almost guarantee you're going to get at least 2, if not all 3 quarterbacks on the field against Portland State to show off. And yes, who plays the first half? My guess would be Hillstead, but I could be totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
May not actually be the guy. You know, that if you start him in game 1, as long as he doesn't look awful, which you shouldn't against Portland State, he should be the guy in game 2 as well, at least to start. But you just can't let that. You can't play 2 quarterbacks very far into the season. One game.
It never works.
But, BYU's got real opponents in week 2. They got real D1 opponents starting week 2 and week 3, and then you're right into the conference play. So, I don't envy A-Rod, Kalani being in that situation where you have to make that decision.
I think whoever wins the starting job, and I kind of feel like it's going to be Hillstead or Bourget, right? Because they have the more experience in the system. They've been there before. I feel like whoever wins the job is number 1. I feel like Bachmeier is number 2 no matter what.
I think that's probably fair.
Right? And then you're number 3. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's who you go to next, but obviously Bachmeier has more of a future than these other 2 guys, and you want to get him ready to be that starting quarterback as soon as possible.
That's what Utah did last year, and that was... I don't know if it was a mistake.
Don't know if that worked, right?
But it didn't work.
No.
That doesn't necessarily mean that had Utah gone to the 3rd stringer, they would have had more success early. Mm-hmm. But the idea is you're also building for the future.
Yes.
And you've got to let these guys think you're building for the future. And maybe Bachmeier, there's a real chance if Bachmeier wins the starting job this year, he should be the favorite to start again next year.
Yeah, 100%.
Until Ryder Lyons gets here.
Yep.
And then Ryder Lyons is going to be ready to step in and compete for that job. And at that point, Bachmeier would be a junior, and that would be probably, I guess, best case scenario. Best case scenario is Bachmeier's an absolute baller, and you don't need the next guy. Mm-hmm. That's always the best case scenario is the guy who's there already is really good. But that's what the approach that Kyle Whittingham took last year. Name the experienced guy, and obviously we knew it was going to be Cam Rising as long as he was healthy. But he goes with Isaac Wilson, and you see again how quickly why I don't envy those decisions.
Right.
How quickly that gets difficult,
yeah.
And then you're pulling the freshman if things aren't going well. And it's like, how long of a leash do you go? Is Isaac Wilson going to get better, or is he not going to get better? And how quickly can that happen?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, and especially you think of today's college football too. This is what keeps coming to my mind too. You name a starter. If they do really well, do these other guys be like, "Well, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm done."
Right? I was that close to the starting job, but this guy's doing good, and I'm never going to step on the field as long as he's here. So then here comes the portal, and see you later. They talk about adding as much competition to each position because it's going to bring out the very best player. Okay, that's great, but ultimately some of those really good players that you brought in may not end up staying at your program because they lost out on that's not a reason why you should ever make a decision. You need to pick the guy who is the best player to win now.
But they do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't praise players.
Right.
They don't let you see certain players. Kyle Whittingham talks about one great wide receiver at Utah in spring, and he transfers because all of a sudden everyone says, oh, well, we got some money.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll go and pay you, and Utah's not going to utilize you the way we think we can utilize you, so they bounce. And that's the difficult part. You've got to keep everyone fed, but you can't really rob your number 1 guy of those opportunities either. So, again, it's a difficult spot for BYU to be in, certainly not one anyone expected them to be in before the Jake Retzlaff situation, and it does fall on A-Rod's shoulders where I think you're right. I think better than maybe saying the hinge point is who's the person that's going to get the blame if things don't go well this season. And I do think at Utah it'll be Devin Dampier because it'll be the offense is not going well, and he doesn't do things at a Big 12 level that he was able to do in the Mountain West Conference, and vice versa. A-Rod was not able to figure out the guy. That would be the projection.
Yeah, and now my mind's starting to go down different avenues here. I don't want this to happen. I want to see Devin Dampier have a great year.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, that'd be super interesting for them to. Isaac Wilson is starting at the U again. How different would his experience be this year compared to last? How has he grown? How has he learned? I know Utah fans don't want to think about that now. They want to think about that next year after he gets to a year behind Dampier. But all of the scenarios that come to mind in the preseason, that's one of them.
I remember Kyle Whittingham one time saying, I don't really sleep very well. I get it. Because we asked him if, he's a napper. How does he handle a plane ride? I think it was a private plane, going to media days or whatever. It's like, are you sleeping on the plane? And Whit's answer was, I don't sleep very well. And it was like, oh, yeah, I get it. All of these things that we can pick apart and you can just pull at the thread and pull at the thread and it never stops. I'm sure it's easy to get lost in all the what ifs.
100%.
So you get on the field and, Saturday now Utah has their first scrimmage or one of their scrimmages coming up through camp and probably help define a lot of that and give a clearer idea of what they're looking for. But difficult job, stressful job for those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how it plays out this year. All right, when we come back, top 3 stories at KSLSports.com. Stick around. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Sam Farnsworth. There's no V in there. Farnsworth sitting in for Jake. Hey, nominate your youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Christian, our top 3 stories today, brought to you by our friends at J. Brooks Jewelers, 2 locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Cherish your loved ones with J. Brooks Jewelers. Explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. JBrooksJewelers.com.
Number 1, let's start here. Win totals in conference for the Big 12 have been released. Arizona State and Kansas State both projected with 6 Big 12 wins.
Do you buy an Arizona State? This kind of seems to be my question everywhere I go.
6 Big 12 wins. Man, I tell you what.
That's a lot. That's 6-2 in conference. That's really good. Or 6-3 in conference. Excuse me.
Look, there's a lot of hype behind Arizona State this year, and I think, what's his name? Their head coach,
Dillingham.
Yes, I don't know if you heard him recently.
Dilly.
His little rant about how awful they are. Like, we're just a mediocre team, all this, and he's definitely trying to play his team way down. Look, I think they're a very talented team. They had a lot of young talent on their team. Big part of their success last year was Cam Scadaboo.
Yep.
And he's not there. And so for me, it's like, man, the biggest part of your offense is no longer there. Can you have the same success we saw last year? I still buy Arizona State as a top half of the conference team. 6 conference wins. Man, is this an over and under type thing? I don't know if I would take the over on 6. But I think 6 is about right.
The other thing we need to recognize, and look, it came together relatively quickly, but when did teams actually start taking Arizona State seriously? Now, to the point, obviously they were being taken seriously in December,
right.
And they did beat a top 20 ranked Iowa State team 45-19, in the conference title game, right? I mean, just absolutely crushed them. Arizona was not good. They did beat BYU in a very close game, 28-23. They beat Kansas State last year, 24-14. But before that, I think it was probably pretty easy to poke holes in their schedule. Wyoming, Mississippi State, Texas Tech is their non-conference schedule. This is last year, by the way. Mm-hmm. They lose to Texas Tech to start the year. Texas Tech was a normal Texas Tech team last season. They beat Kansas. Well, Kansas wasn't good early in the year, and we didn't really know what to expect from them.
Right.
Then you beat Utah, and the wheels had fallen off at Utah by that point. You beat Cincinnati, who was not, or you lost to Cincinnati, excuse me. You beat Oklahoma State, who was also a disaster, and then you beat Central Florida. Like, honestly, their first 8-ish weeks of the season, I'm not sure is the team that I would say, well, that's the number 11 team in the country next year. Now, again, to their credit, they closed extraordinarily strong.
Right.
Beat Kansas State, beat BYU, beat Arizona, beat Iowa State, and then put up a great fight against Texas in a terrific playoff game. But I'm with you. I know it's different because I've seen it with Utah. I've seen it with BYU. When you enter the season with a target on your back and the weight on your shoulders that you're expected to perform, and you've not been in that situation, it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's really heavy because everybody circles you and comes after you.
Yeah, heavy enough that, again, I go back to Dillingham's comments about how he was just berating his team, basically saying, that's how a bad team practices, and I think a part of it has to do with exactly that. You're trying to take the target off your back a little bit, take a little bit of that pressure that undoubtedly his team has noticed the headlines. His team knows what the expectations are. And yeah, you want your expectation level high. You expect your team to play at a high level. You expect them to be able to compete. You don't want to build in excuses. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, it almost feels like they're preparing for a letdown in the follow-up season. So.
Kansas State, I don't think it's a coincidence that these two teams are both projected at 6 wins in conference because they don't play each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly helpful. If they played each other, obviously somebody would have to get a loss, and I wonder if that would drop them to 5.5 projected wins, which is, by the way, right where Utah is. Kansas State's schedule in conference, let's see if I'm doing this right. Do they do the weird thing where they're playing a team in conference that is not a conference game? Because they open the season with Iowa State, which obviously would be a conference game. But
that's
the game in Ireland?
Ireland, yeah.
And that's coming up on August 23rd. I mean, that's 2 weeks away, which is very exciting. But, yeah, it's a week 0 game. So they play Iowa State. This is potentially conference games. I'd have to look at which one of these does not count. Arizona, Central Florida, Baylor, TCU, Kansas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Utah, Colorado. It's not an easy schedule, but I actually think it's a little lighter than what Arizona State plays this year. Unless you're talking about, we got to figure out which game is a non-conference game.
No, I mean, I think the game at Utah, I think is definitely going to be a better team than what was around last year, and that being their second to last game of the year, that's not going to be easy. The Oklahoma State game, probably not. Colorado, I'm not buying.
Those last 3 games are a huge toss-up.
Yeah.
Honestly, the last 5.
I don't know.
All of these are a huge toss-up. We don't know what to expect from Kansas.
I don't know that Kansas State wins those 6 games, but again, this is a team that last year we thought was going to be much better too than they were, and they underperformed. So maybe things click a year later. I don't know, but yeah, it's the Big 12. When we've talked about this a lot, or I'm sure you guys have, we've talked about it in our TV department a lot. How much of a toss up just the top half of the entire conference is going to be this year, which makes it exciting. I think the negative to that is that it could hurt your chances at multiple teams getting to college football playoff if you beat up yourself at the top of the standings a little bit. But it's going to be exciting because 6-7 teams on the standings here, you could probably say, yeah, they got a chance to win the conference championship this year.
I think that's why the coaches poll looked the way it did.
Right.
Of just kind of like hedging their bets. Like, we'll just put BYU and Texas Tech and Iowa State and Kansas State, like 20 through 24.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably okay, but is one of these teams 15? Probably. Is one of these teams 12?
Yeah.
Probably. But we're going to bet on Arizona State being the best team because of last year, and then everyone else we're just going to kind of like pepper in at the very end. And I think that's probably the right approach in all honesty, because what of these teams goes in with 0 question marks that you're super confident in? Even Arizona State lost their best player from last year and their biggest piece of their offense. So I would have a hard time. I don't bet on sports. I wouldn't tell you how to place an over-under. I don't care. I don't want to tell you. But just looking at who is projected to be good, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. And you know that you bring up that coaches poll. When I saw it, the first thing I thought of was, this is what the polls looked like a lot last year. There was 1 or 2 Big 12 teams maybe pushing ahead, but it was always like 3-4 names right in a row near the bottom. Couldn't quite figure out who should be in, who should be out. It's a toss-up. We'll see where we're at in week 3 or week 4. But
if by the end of the season, one of these teams jumps out and is obviously better than everybody else, the team that I would say would make sense would be Kansas State to me. Mm-hmm. Because you have Avery Johnson, because he's coming back now in his 3rd year. Yep. We probably crowned him a year too early to be the guy in the conference. But the talent is obviously there. I mean, he's awesome when he has the ball in his hands and has some passing chops, obviously so dangerous with his legs. So if he puts that all together in year 3, now he's getting to that experience level, they should be competing for a conference championship, which again makes that second to last week of the season at Utah potentially one of the biggest games in all of the Big 12 this year.
That's a game that I've circled, right? The saying, we circle them on our calendar, right? That's one of the games that stood out to me for sure when the schedule came out. Avery Johnson, Devin Dampier, if they both kind of live up to the hype. Obviously, we know a little bit more of what Avery Johnson can do at this level. He's got all the skills, all the talent to be successful. If his team can rally with him and do that, they would be very good. But to see those 2 quarterbacks potentially competing for a spot in a Big 12 championship game at that point in the season, that's a game that Rice Eccles will be rocking.
Then again, they went on the road and lost to Houston 24-19 late in the year, and he looked absolutely awful and had no.
That's true. That's where you hope to see the next step that you expect to see from quarterbacks. So,
all right, number 2.
Number 2, according to Coach Witt, sounds like the Utes have their own version or versions of Travis Hunter.
Got some utility guys, Nate Johnson, Hunter Andrews, JJ Buchanan, guys like that who are kind of able to do several things. Smith Snowden's looking good on offense. That's been a good addition for us. And Lander Barton's doing some good things on offense. So we've got a lot of options right now.
The two names that he kind of threw in there at the very end are the interesting ones there. You know, Nate Johnson, utility guy. Nate Johnson's going to get some red zone opportunities. Now, the problem for Nate Johnson is he might not be better at anything than Devin Dampier is.
Right.
Right? Like Nate Johnson, if you had a true drop back passing quarterback, okay, Nate Johnson come in, be a threat with your legs. Well, that's what Devin Dampier is.
Right.
Like, unless you're just, lining up Wayshawn Parker and Nate Johnson in the backfield and you had some really trick plays, you can do that. And Nate Johnson will be utilized, but Devin Dampier's going to get those opportunities in the red zone. But yeah, Smith Snowden lining up assumedly at wide receiver, because I think Utah's depth chart at the running back position is plenty healthy this year, and Lander Barton playing some tight end. I wonder if you're getting to a point now where you're saying, hey, man, these guys are making 7 figures. They're getting a huge chunk of NIL.
Yeah.
We got to have them on the field as much as possible.
Right? Yeah.
We can't have you just in one spot anymore. And look, this isn't, I mentioned the two-way movement and reflecting what you saw last year from Travis Hunter. This isn't new at Utah. Sione Vaki played 2 positions last year, and they've utilized that before. Chase Hansen even was kind of, I remember Whit being like, I think he's a safety and a quarterback. I was like, so he's a safety? You mean he's a safety, Whit? But Utah might have to get these guys on the field, especially if they don't feel like they have some of the talent at the skill position.
You're right. The one name that kind of took me off guard a little bit was when he mentioned Lander Barton.
Yeah, that was
and the
a
way
surprise.
he said it, right? Like, he's doing some great things on offense. I'm like, whoa, Lander Barton, this is a potential NFL linebacker here. You're talking about using him on offense, and you bring up a great point. Sometimes you just have to get your best athletes on the field in a position to make plays. And Lander Barton's a phenomenal athlete. I was just looking up his size. I listed him at 6'5", 236. I mean, does he have hands? Can he catch the ball?
Yeah.
Like, is that what we're talking about? Doing kind of an H-back type thing here? Is he? I'm curious. And then you go back to Nate Johnson. Look at his size, too. He's 6'1", just barely 200 pounds. Like, you're not running him in a Taysom Hill type role.
No,
He's got to be
not.
25, 30 pounds heavier and a little bit taller. But I remember when he came in, they kind of mentioned that comparison for Nate, right? So, but putting these players, all of your best athletes on the field, okay, I get it. And you bring up an interesting point in NIL money. NIL drives so much decision-making in college athletics now, which is just, it's kind of frustrating. It's disappointing, but that's just the fact of the matter. And I think Utah was burned by it, unfortunately, with, the Cam Rising injuries and the just a lot of the unknown there 2 years ago, especially, where it was just like the two camps were kind of going back and forth as to whether he was ready, and yet he was probably getting paid the whole time. I'm sure people were not happy to see that he wasn't on the field. So now, hey, we're giving money to these guys. We need to see them. You need to play them. And who knows, maybe there's outside voices saying, hey, this guy could play on offense too. The pressure that coaches probably feel from people with a lot of money.
Yeah.
That would stink.
It's a copycat league. So you see a player like Travis Hunter kind of break the mold, and you say, maybe that's not as weird as we think it is. Christian, did you play both sides of the ball in high school?
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
What did you play?
Linebacker and fullback.
Okay. I mean, the truth is, best athlete at Box Elder over here, Box Elder High School. These guys in high school were playing both sides of the ball. Again, we talk about
100%.
Travis Hansen? No.
Travis Hunter.
Chase Hansen.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I'm mixing up names. Yeah, he was just the best athlete on the field.
Yep.
Same with Britton Covey, right? He's just the best athlete on the field, even if he didn't have prototypical size. It's like your pitcher being your best hitter in high school. It's just like these
100%.
guys are just better at the sport than everybody else is, and they're going to figure out how to get on the field, and that's the best way to utilize them. And yes, I get you're trying to preserve them, and I get you're trying to maximize their ability to make it to the NFL to make money. They're making money now.
Yep.
Find a way to get them out there. And to the point, Sione Vaki is a running back now in the NFL and was a very good safety.
Yeah, and he had 2 really good, maybe 3 really good games as a running back at the U out of nowhere. And that's what they have him listed at on the depth chart. They have him listed as running back at the Detroit Lions. And I love the comparison you brought up with your best hitters almost always your best pitcher too, or vice versa, right, in high school. And your Shohei's unicorn, But I think there's probably a dozen Shoheis out there if Major League Baseball really wanted to have these great hitters pitch too, because they were great pitchers once upon a time.
If colleges had let some of these guys do more of it, you would have more players, not to Shohei's level. He just happens to be the best hitter and one of the better pitchers. But you would have guys who could play both sides of the ball.
Makes sense.
You worried about Leonard Barton's injury history, though?
That's the biggest issue.
Specifically with him, because he's been injured the last couple of years.
And if you're a player who's known for being, he's a star on the defensive side of the ball, and you get hurt on offense, that's going to be a killer. It's really going to be hard to swallow.
And I wonder what he thinks. Right? What kind of role does he want offensively when he knows there's a future for him in the NFL on defense? Right? You got to think about that as well, and do some self-preservation along the way. But again, like you said, Sione Vaki, he carved out a role for him eventually as an offensive player when he was this great defensive talent. So I don't know.
I would rather be a defensive player being asked to play offense
100%.
because then I can touch the ball as opposed to Mekhi Bernard
having to go
in the
tackle.
Rose Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Congrats, you're a corner on a first-round draft pick.
Right. Good luck.
I don't really know how to do this so much. So I'm sure those guys will be happy to touch the ball.
Yeah.
Be worth watching throughout camp and into the season for Utah. All right, number 3.
Number 3, here's the headline, guys. Dan Lanning scared of Bronco Mendenhall.
Ducks, Buck, Bronco, right? Who do you think canceled this game? They said it was a mutual decision to cancel these games. And I'm sure in some sense Bronco was happy to not play some of these Murderers Row games that are just go out and get smashed because that's what Oregon does early in the season in these games. At the same point, in all honesty, I don't really want to play a Bronco Mendenhall team. Ever.
No.
Bronco's a very good coach, and his team's going to be prepared. And they might not beat you, but you're going to feel them. You're going to know you played a Bronco Mendenhall team probably for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, that was a common sentiment when I went down to Mountain West Media Days. And, of course, it's just, Mountain West opponents. But those coaches have such great respect for Bronco Mendenhall and what he's been able to do, every program that he's gone to along the way. And that, saying you're being afraid of playing a Bronco Mendenhall coach team, that's something multiple coaches said, man, that game is a scary game when we play Broncos teams because he's going to bring a defense that, looks that they haven't seen before. They're going to bring a physicality that they maybe aren't totally used to. And, you might end up winning that game, but I agree with you, Ben. You're not going to forget as a head coach or as a team the times that you played Bronco Mendenhall coach teams. So, look, nowadays teams – in power conferences, they don't want to risk losing games to G5s anymore with all that's on the line. And that's one team now, one coach, one head coach for sure at a G5 level that if he's on your schedule, it's like, can we replace this one?
Yep.
What can we do here? So,
especially if you're scheduled to play them 3 times, which was the case here. They were scheduled to play in 2027, 2028, and 29, which is crazy.
Yeah.
3 years in a row
How they got that.
is a lot. So they've canceled the 2027 and the 2028 game. They will still play the 2029 game. And with college football being as in flux as it is.
Potentially play the 2029 game.
Yeah,
right?
potentially. We don't know
But
what the Pac-12 was going to look like in 2027 or 2028. We've got a loose idea of who the teams are going to be, but that can always change, and how many games they're going to play and what the scheduling is going to look like. I get that there's probably some advantage for everyone to have just a little more flexibility. You can always backfill these games however you have to, but it's unfortunate. I always like to see good non-conference games. That would have been fun for Utah State.
Yeah. When was that series agreed upon originally?
That's a good question.
Was that a while ago? I'm trying to figure that out because, it makes you wonder. Obviously, Bronco wasn't around, but was this a Dan Lanning agreement? Or did he step into that agreement when he took the Oregon job? Right? Is that because nowadays you schedule out games almost 10 years in advance, and it's like, what are we doing here? But it's
2020. So this was
okay.
Right. This was in April, so it was in the heart of COVID.
Yeah.
Right as I think everything was settled down. Everyone was like, let's just work some things out.
Yeah, teams were a little desperate maybe, right? So Dan Lanning wasn't there yet either.
Right.
So, he stepped into a team that already had games scheduled, and he's probably looking at it like, I have no interest in this, don't need this, and let's move on from it. So.
I'm really curious not that it's been all that rich recently, I'll be curious what Utah State's future scheduling looks like with Utah and BYU once they go to the Pac-12. And does Bronco want to play BYU? Does Kyle Whittingham want to play Bronco? I don't. And you know how long Whit's going to be here. Probably not going to factor in. But like again, I don't think you want to play Bronco.
No.
Bronco is really difficult to play against and coach against. So credit to him. I think Utah State got a very good one, obviously, by hiring Bronco Mendenhall. All right, when we come back, we'll wrap up our time with Sam Farnsworth.
Cool.
Went quick.
Stick
around. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Sam Farnsworth filling in for Jake Scott. Jake's going to be back tomorrow. Excited Jake was in San Diego, where I was last year. We were just talking about I was there during the Olympics.
He's coming.
I know. Don't ask me.
I'm like, he's got a. Right, he's off on Saturday and Sunday.
I came back on the 25th of July, which was a Friday. It was like the day after the 24th of July. I'd been gone all week, too, and I came back for the 25th.
Hey,
so
why not?
You know what? It's a good way to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
It's a good way to be like, I'm back at work. You don't have the whole weekend to be like.
Yeah. Hey, you know, that's not a bad strategy. I like that, too.
So, happy to have Jake back always. But, Sam, you've been terrific as always. Thanks. I was like having you step in and filling in. You know, I'm not trying to bury what is obviously the lead going on right now, which is college football. I'm going to be really curious how much the AJ Dybantsa storm changes the narrative in sports in our state while he's here.
Yeah.
He's already changed it long term because we're talking about, will this big recruit commit to BYU or consider BYU? And does BYU have the NIL money to get these types of players? I think it's probably still it's going to be more rare than we think. You know, it seemed like all these things lined up for AJ Dybantsa. I think what people have to recognize is when you get a player of his caliber, which is potential, if not expected, number 1 overall draft pick, guys like Robert Wright from Baylor will come play. They want to come play with you.
Right.
They want to be on the field, on the floor with you because, A, it's your chance to say, I played with LeBron, I played with Kobe, I played with AJ Dybantsa, these huge expectations. But also, you're going to be seen a lot, right? BYU is going to be they look at their non-conference schedule, look at the tournaments that they're playing in.
They have a preseason, what do they call it, exhibition game against North Carolina, right? I mean, that's going to be watched by a lot of people.
There's going to be 20 NBA scouts at every single game, so you're going to be seen as well. It's a great opportunity for you. But if he is as good as advertised, and he has been so far, every step of the way in high school, U19, Olympic, not pre-qualifier, but, the national team stuff that he's done, he could take over the state, especially if Utah and BYU are, say, 6-3, 9 games into the season. This might be one of the rare times where, before New Year's, we're really talking a lot about college basketball. He has a chance to be the guy.
So a couple things, like obviously when you got a player like that and the roster that's been kind of built around him that's coming into Provo this year, the expectation level is high. And if you fail to meet those expectations, it could all backfire, right? Then maybe Provo doesn't become this stepping stone to the NBA that Kevin Young wants it to be. They don't have to be a national champion, but they've got to be good. They've got to be really good, right? They've got to be a team that's going to make it to the second weekend of the tournament again, at least.
At least, yeah.
Right?
I don't think Sweet 16 is good enough for this team, in all honesty.
Right. That's the floor. That is the absolute floor. If you're not getting to the second game of the second weekend, then it could be considered not a success. I don't want to say failure, but not a success.
No, you didn't take advantage of your opportunity.
AJ Dybantsa is doing everything the right way so far. As when you talk about the storm, the explosion that could come with him, he is embracing himself or embedding himself into the community.
Embracing the community,
and embracing the community. He's doing a lot of things that. Do you remember when Donovan Mitchell came to town? The way he put himself into the community and became beloved by Utah fans. Even to this day, I think a lot of Utah Jazz fans still have a special place for Donovan Mitchell, right? Even though the writing was on the wall that he probably wasn't going to stick around. I think AJ is doing a lot of the same stuff. He is really embracing the community, embracing Utah. He's putting himself in situations to be seen, to show that he's a part of the community. When he was showing up to basketball games last year and just hanging out with the student section, he's doing everything right for his brand, but also for the brand of BYU basketball and for people to love him here.
LeBron is separating himself from his Lakers teammates. He's already doing this thing, right? It's like it's Luka's team and I'm LeBron. AJ's not doing that, which I was worried about.
Yeah.
You have a guy with this type of star power coming in and getting this type of NIL money. I mean, truthfully, he's living in a different world than the rest of these guys, right? Like, yes, we can you saw the NIL numbers for Cooper Flagg last year.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh.
The expectation he probably actually made like $28 million last year because he also had a shoe deal. Like
it's crazy.
That's where AJ is actually going to be. And Robert Wright might have made $2 million to come play at BYU.
Yeah.
But like, there's a difference, which is a ton for a 19-year-old or 20-year-old. But there's a difference between what AJ is doing and what the rest of them are doing. So credit to AJ for, as you said, buying in. I saw the video of him bowling last night.
Yeah.
He's just out with his dudes, out with his teammates.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to do, and that's a good sign.
Good for him.
All right. Speaking of AJ Dybantsa, we'll talk a little AJ with Mitch Harper, who's going to join us coming up next. All the latest on BYU fall camp as well. Stick around. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We'll always love having you.
We'll do it again.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.